Hello out there, everyone. It is Professor Buzzkill, your favorite podcasting historian, busting myths, taking names. Boy, some topics just do not end. And one of them is Hitler and the Nazis. It's so deep. There's so many things to discuss. And often when we approach a topic like we are today, women in Nazi Germany, we find that it's going to require more than one show. And so Professor Nash, who's with us via the internet, suggested quite rightly we should do 2 episodes on this. And so that's what we're doing. Women in Nazi Germany. Professor, welcome back.
Hi there. Great to be back.
It's always great to have you. People, you haven't been on for a while, and people get antsy. And of course, I don't want to insult any of our other guests because all their topics are important too, but you generally get the most important ones and the hardest ones. And women in Nazi Germany is a very hard and difficult topic. And also, it's a very big topic.
It is a big topic. There are lots of directions you can take this topic. Obviously, we're not going to cover all of them, but I have deliberately made a decision to sacrifice depth for breadth.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and give folks a really broad overview. Hopefully, they'll get an appreciation for how big this topic is and how many different angles it has, knowing we can't cover all of them, and also, once again, acknowledging that we're not going to go super deep on any one of them. But there are lots of angles here.
And they'll be able to get a lot of that depth in the books that we recommend on the Buzzkill bookshelf.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start at the beginning, which actually technically before the beginning, context.
Sure.
What about women in the Weimar Republic?
Yeah, as in all ways, in terms of politics and everything else, the Nazi Germany grows out of the Weimar Republic, right? This post-World War I period from 1919 to 1933, where Germany had as it turned out, unsuccessful experiment with democracy. Like American women, German women got the right to vote right after World War I, pretty much at the same time. It was part of the very liberal Weimar Constitution. But as in the United States as well, suffrage for women, the vote, brings little real gender equality. Like men, many women longed for order among the chaos that you saw in the 1920s. In Germany, you had flappers, right, the so-called new woman, just like you did in the United States. But many women, it wasn't just men, but many women rejected the sort of liberal urban culture that seemed to dominate Weimar Germany.
Yeah.
And so the new woman or the flapper, whatever you want to call her, like in the United States, she's blown out of proportion. She's not representative, but she gets a lot of media attention. And so she is scapegoated in Germany for a lot of the chaos and the decadence that people associated with that period. Right? The big cities were, it was the roaring 20s in Germany's big cities, not just Berlin. Right? There was a lot of fast living. There was a lot of new entertainment. Right? There was the movies and the cabarets and the burlesque shows and the equivalent of vaudeville, etc. So a lot of people, including women, yearned for tradition. And of course, this sort of social conservatism or cultural conservatism is something the Nazis tapped into.
Yeah.
But, we tend to focus on women who are dissatisfied by not being able to work outside the home.
Right, okay.
But what you saw in Weimar is many women dissatisfied with work.
In
other words,
that's interesting.
And that's partly, I think, I was thinking about it, I think this is partly the way we sort of frame, you might even call it the sort of the Whig history of women in the world, right? That's just sort of this steady advance toward progress, and progress equals women working outside the home. But at the time, a lot of people, including a lot of women, didn't look at it that way. And it's understandable, especially when you consider that women who worked outside the home in Weimar Germany were typically in the least unionized lines of work, right? So they didn't have all those sort of benefits that unions brought, right? Like high pay and job security and good working conditions. Often they were in the worst paid jobs, and they were in the jobs where the workers were most exploited. So, from our frame, we say, oh, doesn't everyone want a career and doesn't everyone want to work outside the home? Well, a lot of German women in the 1920s didn't look at it that way.
Right. Well, so things aren't necessarily rosy in Weimar Germany for women. So did German women support the Nazis before they came to power, before 1933? Was as an alternative?
Right. Not at first. And in this sense, keep in mind that women were just like men in this regard, that very few men supported the Nazi Party through most of the 1920s. The Nazi Party didn't help itself with women because it was probably the least feminist party, and we'll talk about this later. And that's saying a lot because, there was no woman's party that had any sort of clout